launch off of that corner also. Okay, number 3. By the way, they left one of those monsters in the quarry where they got the other 3. So you get.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. There's a picture on page 26 of my book showing 2 little people standing next to this humongous.
Oh, they are huge. They are.
Largest,
aren't they bigger than the pyramid blocks? I think they are.
Oh, gosh, yeah. They weigh 1,200 tons, George.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, they're a little bigger.
Okay, then number 3 is the Giza pyramids.
Okay.
I have many pages on that because that, to me, was a classic. We can get into some of this later, but
yeah, we'll go through each one. But
number 4 is Easter Island statues.
Okay.
And
5 is
5. Oops.
Gee, Marshall, you mean you don't have this all memorized?
I go to my index, George. That's it. All right.
I don't blame you.
5 are the walls, the Cyclopean walls. The Peru, those things. And then 6 is the New World pyramids. And 7 is the Crystal Skull.
Uh-huh.
Mitchell Hedges' Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
The Nazca Lines.
Yeah.
The Winged Pilot. The life-size, number 10 is the life-size statue of Ishtar.
Mm-hmm.
And the number 11 is the relief in the Egyptian temple that shows the flying vehicles. There were flying vehicles that were portrayed by somebody chiseling up in the roof of that temple.
Okay. All right.
And then number 12 is the cylinder seals. And the cylinder seals, I think, are the most incredible invention that they gave us. It's kind of like a storage information device, because when you roll the cylinder seal over wet clay, it gives you a positive picture story.
Right. It's like a negative on the
and the
tablet.
Cylinders that they used were made out of a stone that has the hardness of steel, and the steel was engraved in the negative. I mean, it's a cute trick that they did, but they left information. You know, these were like, you know, this is what we did, this is how we did it, and you piece those together. The British Museum is filled with cuneiform tablets and cylinder seals that make this story have authenticity.
All right, let's move to some of these areas.
Okay.
And have you talk about it for the next hour as well. We'll take phone calls in the last hour with you, Marshall.
Okay.
Stonehenge. As a matter of fact, there was a report that just came out a few months ago that also thought that it may be a place of healing for people. There may be some energy there. But tell me why you believe that area was developed by the Anunnaki.
Okay. Before there were any stones at Stonehenge, it was a giant circle with a trench. And in the trench was white chalk. There's a lot of chalk in that part of England. And there were 56 holes in the ground that were 3-foot diameter, made out of chalk. So here you had an object on the ground that had this circle of white chalks, and then these 56 holes. Well, in 1960, CBS did a computer analysis of these Aubrey holes. Nobody could figure out what 56 meant. So they did this analysis, and lo and behold, they discovered that at this geographic location, in a sequence of every 19 years, 19 years, and 18 years, there's an eclipse of the moon. So if you took the black stone and moved it around, covering up the white holes, Aubrey holes, in succession with the moon's cycle, you can predict. It was a computer predicting the eclipses of the moon. Okay, so phase 1 went into phase 2, where they brought the stones in and they started clocking the sun. First we had a moon computer, and then the second thing they did was they put the stones up which track the summer solstice and the winter solstice. And these stones were moved from 200 miles away, George. And they're humongous.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me that the tribes on the Salisbury Plain there were capable of moving these stones, digging holes, tilting them up, and dropping them perfectly into the depth of these holes, so that when you were finished, you have a circle of lentils on the top.
Now, did they build this because they needed it, or were they doing this for us?
That's a good question, George. I wish I knew the answer. I would say that they were showing us what they knew. In other words, by first doing the moon computer, that's a very, very sophisticated operation.
Absolutely.
And that was like 3000 BC. People who could predict the eclipse of the moon with a computer-like device. That was, and also, I have a feeling, this is my own theory, that because it was white chalk holes and white chalk trench, it was some kind of a navigational. They had problems coming in to our planet from outer space, and then orbiting around the equator. At that time, there was no infrastructure to guide them. In other words, our precision that we do with the shuttles is amazing, but we have all this ground technology.
Telemetry. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, they didn't have any of that. So maybe they built this two-purpose Stonehenge Phase 1, which was eclipse of the moon, but also a navigational beacon. Later on, I know they made beacons out of the pyramids, and they made beacons out of the Easter Island, and I can explain that later. But I would say that the Stonehenge was just kind of like the first temple. Now, if you look at the construction, George, from an engineering point of view, uprights connected by a lintel on the top that are pinned. There were pins on the top of the stone that held the lintels in place, and they went around in this circle at the top of the uprights. You look at the Egyptian temples, they're all built that way.
Yeah.
They're vertical pillars with lintels on the top that hold them together, and they're square, they're not circular. This is an incredible feat of engineering to make a circular temple like that. So, to answer your question, I really don't know, but if I were to guess, they were doing it for themselves.
All right, we'll get into some of the other 11 next hour. Where was their laboratory for the genetic manipulation? Was it their craft? Did
they
live?
They claimed, or in the translations, it says that Enki had a laboratory down in the mining area, Abzu, they called it, and he did it there. Then he moved. He could do it any place, and they apparently had a way of transferring their technology to different places by recording it in what they called MEs. And the MEs are the biggest mystery. I haven't really figured totally out yet. But there were small wafer-like devices that had tremendous information stored in them, and
almost like chips.
Chips, like a computer chip. And one night I had this dream that one of the characters, I always dream about the characters in my book, particularly Ishtar. She's my favorite. She's such a beauty. Took one of those little wafers out and squeezed it against the wall. Squeezed it, and a picture came out of it and was readable on the wall.
All right, we'll be back. We'll talk more about some of these artifacts on Coast to Coast AM.